optimizing DuckyScript defines and making our PowerShell payloads more beautiful. This time on Hack 5. For Hack 5, I'm Darren Kitchen, taking a look at how to make PowerShell more beautiful in Payload Studio as we develop payloads for our USB rubber ducky, as well as how to best use define, those fun little constants in DuckyScript. So let's just dive right into it. We have been working in this series on optimizing this payload here for the USB rubber ducky. That is the fast Windows caps lock blinker. It's inspired by a payload by Atomic ZSec that toggles the caps lock key with an inline payload against Windows targets. And we've done all sorts of cool stuff like make our attack mode better so that it mimics a Logitech K120 keyboard, and put in a passive Windows detection which only delays the necessary milliseconds, in most cases 25, before injecting keystrokes. And hey, if it's not a Windows system, it'll just show up as an innocuous flash drive. Well, now I want to take it another step further and show you how to get the most out of these little defines. So if we remembered what our payload does here is, now we say, hey, if you're a Windows system, we're going to open up that old classic Windows run dialog, just the GUI R that pops this little dialog up right there. And we're going to say, hey, I now, in addition to typing all of this PowerShell, right, and delaying for what we've defined in our payload, we're going to make this more beautiful and take a look at how this define actually works. So right at the top of your payload, it's best practice, that's where to put all of your defines. And basically what that is anything that should be tweaked by any potential future users. In this case, we put a little comment that says, choose how long you want the caps lock key to blink in seconds. And then we set a define and we name it #sleep. And I like to use pound in my defines just stylistically so that I know, hey, that's kind of like a variable is var $foo, right? So similar to beginning with the sigil that is a $, we use a pound. And in this case, it's set to 1, which is going to mean when this keystroke injection attack is complete, our PowerShell is going to instruct it to send the key caps lock with a delay of 1 second. So it's going to blink every 1 second. Now, future person could come over to this payload and say they want the caps lock key to turn on and off every 60 seconds. And it's quite easy. All you have to do is change that one define right there, and then you don't have to dig into the code down here. It's all right there at the top for you. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this as 1, but let's go ahead and talk about how this actually looks in our payload. So we've talked about this before. We're doing a little bit of PowerShell, and then you'll notice that we do another string. And remember, string as opposed to string line, right? String is just going to go ahead and type in anything after all of those characters, and it's not going to end with a carriage return. So while there is a new string command on this line, there is no carriage return between this and this. And we can use that to make things look a little prettier as we type this out. And it's just an important thing to note that this is all going to end up on one line, all right, even though it's shown to us on multiple lines. Well, as we follow the PowerShell, we see, okay, we're going to do this DuckyScript thing. We're going to send keys caps lock, semicolon, which is a delimiter between commands in PowerShell. And then we're going to sleep. And then I do a space, and then I string #sleep. And so this is basically a find and replace in Payload Studio when you generate your payload. If I hover over here, or even just click it, it says, the define #sleep is going to modify this and replace it with 1, because that is what I defined up here. It's kind of nice that you can just hover over any of these places where define is used and see what it's going to end up being. So what we can actually do to pretty this up is, I talked about how, yes, it will process trailing spaces right there, but they're kind of hard to see. I personally like to do a space, and I mentioned that I like the best practice of putting the define on its own line with string, but you don't have to. In fact, if I just get rid of this line and get rid of that space, and I just put it right here with a space, it is going to work. And if I hover over, it'll tell you, hey, that's going to get replaced with 1. So essentially, this is going to look like that, 1, as opposed to #sleep when this actually gets compiled. So let's go ahead and do that with the next one. We'll get rid of that space there. We'll put a space and we'll get rid of that string. And there we go, pound sleep. And here's another fun thing. If you begin your define with a pound, it has this awesome benefit that it does not need to be surrounded by white space. So if this was, define sleep instead of pound sleep, then we couldn't do, not like you would want to do this, but you would need to have white space on either side. You need to have a space here and a space here for it to get replaced. So if I wanted to do, that semicolon right there, and we didn't have that pound, then this would not get replaced. It would not work as we expect. We notice we don't have that little thing right there, right? So I'm going to go back to how I had it before, which is pound sleep. And the really cool thing about beginning a define with a pound is that now I can have a character right after it, this semicolon right here, and it's still going to get replaced, in this case, with 1. How awesome is that? Okay, well, let's take it a step further. This looks good. I can read this, and I know that there's a final enter right here at the end, and I know that this is going to go into the Windows Run dialog, and it's going to fit, and it's going to be one nice little beautiful block of PowerShell. But if I'm being honest, it's kind of ugly. So here's what we're going to do. I'm actually, let me unindent this, I'm actually going to get rid of all of these strings here. And you're going to say, like, what are you doing? Darren, that's not valid DuckyScript. In fact, if I hover over, it's like, hey, that's not DuckyScript. I know, but we're going to wrap this entire section of PowerShell with string, oh, what's that? Scroll through these autocompletes, underscore PowerShell. And I'm going to go ahead and at the end of it, I'm going to end underscore string. And now everything in between here, and I'm going to tab all of this over so it looks prettier. All of this is now going to get injected as a single string line, or as a single string with our enter here. And you may notice, suddenly this isn't all yellow. It's actually syntax highlighted based on whatever our IDE setting is. I'm currently using Dracula. You can use Cobalt or whatever. I kind of like the Dracula one right now. Whatever our theme is. So we actually get that syntax highlighting. And this actually looks really readable. In fact, remember we kind of split it up before just so we didn't have to read long word wraps. We kind of like did a weird thing right here with new dash. Let's put that back on its own line like it's supposed to be. Comma, object, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? Let's actually make this look human readable. Okay, so we're PowerShell, window hidden, we do our bypass, our quotation mark. Now we've got a while. I'm going to indent this. While 1. And then, we got our open curly bracket, and I'm going to indent again because I know that's inside of our open curly bracket. And hey, we've got a semicolon here, so that's a new command. I'm going to leave that there. And we've got our sleep, right? And then we've got our semicolon here, and then we've got another one, and then another, boom, and hey, look at this. Suddenly, this is looking more like actual code. And what's really nice about this is if I click over here to that first opening bracket, it's going to highlight the ending opening bracket. This is so beautiful because now I can tell where this, in this case, a while ends. And the same thing would work with ifs and everything else. So while this is pretty for me, the human, in Payload Studio to edit this PowerShell, what's actually going to come out is still going to be a one-liner that fits in the Windows Run dialog. So this carriage return isn't going to be here. It's just for me to see. So similarly, you could do string line underscore PowerShell and end string line. And in this case, it would actually do a carriage return right here after all of these lines. Now, clearly, that's not what we want to do a Windows Run dialog one-liner. So I'm just going to put that back to string. But that's what you can do. And the cool thing is, this works for all of these languages. Bash, Batch, JavaScript, Python, Ruby, and it also not only syntax highlights, but right here, if I wanted to add a new command, I could actually hit Control Space and get this dialog, and it's got every Windows PowerShell command. I've got like, oh cool, let's enable, I don't know, let's enable NetAdapter packet, or let's disable BitLocker. And I have all of those commands. So not only do we have the syntax highlighting, but we also have the like autocomplete, new dash object. Hey, look at that. And it even has the IEX. So we even have the aliases in here for some of the more complex PowerShell commands. And that is a ton, because this is still going to produce that one-liner that's going to fit in our run dialog. But now the next person that goes to use this payload, they come here and they read the description. They're like, oh, okay, I understand what that does, and I see how I can modify this sleep define, and then, oh, wonder what this PowerShell does. And it's so much more readable, because trust me, we have all seen that horizontal scroll bar go on forever with a ton of PowerShell, and you're like, yeah, I'm sure it does what it says on the tin. I don't know, I'll test in the VM. Now it's so much easier to read this stuff and grok it, and I absolutely love this feature. I can't wait to hear what you guys think of this feature and what cool creative stuff you do with it. So now we've covered a lot of bases here on how to optimize and beautify our payload here, and we've done just that with string_PowerShell, and remember, it's going to do it for JavaScript and Ruby and all the others as well. And I just think it's a fantastic way to see your payloads in a more beautiful way. And with that define, it's now inline, so I can hover over and see, hey, this string block, and it even tells you that it's stripping the new line. So don't worry about all of that. All of that is for us, the human, to see. It's not going to get added when it actually does the keystroke injection. And it further tells us that, hey, that define #sleep is going to get replaced with 1. So be sure to find this and more awesome payloads like it over at payloads.hack5.org. There are a ton of payloads in Payload Hub now, and that is also where you can submit your own creativity and get in on the awards. I know last year we gave out over $10,000 in awards. We're doing it again this year, so you definitely want to get in on this. And with that, I'm just saying thanks for being here with us, right? In the, 18 years now? It's been awesome evolving this based on your feedback. Leave a comment, let us know what you think. You guys do a huge, whether you know it or not, you influence this tremendously just by us reading your payloads and understanding how you could benefit more from DuckyScript 3.0 and Payload Studio. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, once again, with that, I'm Darren Kitchen reminding you, trust your technolust. Thanks for supporting Hack5. Find all our shows, community, and pentest products at hack5.org.